I'll tell you what, yeah, like Swish, that was the flattest hockey club I've ever seen come out and put a display on the ice. Like, and listen, walking around the arena, not that I forgot. I mean, I went in there many nights and took a -2, -3 on the chin and fucking jumped on the bus. Let's get the fuck out of here, boys. They've had an unbelievable run. But right now, to me, and we're going to get to the Missin Curfew hot seat, I want to talk about their head coach, but I don't know what's going to happen. Everybody that we talked to in Pittsburgh obviously loves Sid. A lot of the fans were like, they should have not brought Carlson in. They shouldn't have brought re-signed Malkin or the Tang. But I'm just saying, Jay Switch, for how flat they were and no emotion in that building when the first place team in the NHL is coming in, that was concerning for me, man.
Yeah, I mean, until, Sid ended up chucking the mitts there and throwing both ways with Connor, it just seemed like he wasn't even mad. He just looked sad, man. He looked flat a little bit. He looked frustrated. And that team, Obi, they have a lot of, older guys, and they don't really have any prospects. They don't have any guys coming up through the ranks of Wilkes-Barre. Now, they just traded for that Phil Tomasino. Now, he's not going to move the needle. Like, if you're looking at...
I saw that trade.
Right. If you're looking at that roster, it's just like they don't have anything. And without Sid, I mean, they might be a number one overall type of category. Like, for sure, a lottery team, but I don't know. If you're Sidney Crosby, boys, like, do you really want to ride it out and trust the Kyle Dubas plan to kind of get this thing rejuvenated and back on the screws? Or you're like, Mista, get me out of town, baby. I don't know.
Hey, the Mista lady? I think I just killed her.
My finger's hurt.
That was the worst hockey game I've been to in a while. That was horrible. There was nothing going on.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but watching, Sidney Crosby fighting like that, like I've seen a lot of things, but like for a low point for the Pittsburgh Penguins in say the last 10, 15 years, like just, they lose that game and then the Utah Hockey Club comes in and pumps them the next night. Like,
easy money.
Is that not like one of the lower points you think Sid's ever, especially for a guy like just scored his 600th goal, signs a 3-year ticket, they got new placement in management, but 25 games into the season, you're fighting guys like that and your team, no one else is fighting anybody. You're getting your ass kicked. I do look at it though, boys, as if they were to move a Sidney Crosby, and everyone, hopes that it might happen for hockey, but they could turn that thing around. Say they do finish dead last this year and they're a top 3 pick. They could trade him now with 2 years left for what, 3-4 future first rounders, maybe another young or 2 prospects. There's a big package to be had if that, deal ever gets, if that deal moves, and they could turn that thing around in overnight. But right now,
I think that's the thing. Sid's got to look at it like, he's the only asset they really have left there. In Colorado, we were talking about it over some blue lights. Colorado is a team that makes sense to me because of Nathan McKinnon. And I think it was you, Jay Swish, or Richie that said, well, they got Casey Middlestat that could go back the other way. And I'll be honest with you, when they traded Bo Byron for Casey Middlestat, he was already behind the 8 ball for me because I love Bo Byron so much. And listen, Middlestat has tons of skill. But if you could trade Middlestat, you got like Ivan, and then, a guy in the back end like Sam Malinsky, a couple first-round picks going the other way to Pittsburgh, and now you have Crosby to come in to play behind McKinnon for the next 3 years. To me, that helps the Pittsburgh Penguins and obviously helps the Colorado Avalanche and will bring a step back to Crosby that he doesn't have right. Like, Sid's playing great, but even his body language, right, boys? Jay Swish, his body language from the Bat Blue Suite, even though I was, kind of one eye in it, he kind of looks sad. We're like, Sid kind of looks sad out there, doesn't he?
Yeah, he did. Like I said, he just looked like he was not unmotivated. He was just, when your shoulders are down and you get your tail in between your legs, Obi, it's just like, he looked like there's just no hope or no help that he could kind of work with. And you look at some of those other veterans you mentioned, Evgeny Malkin had a tough pizza early on in that game. Erik Karlsson's hook rate would never went over 50. Like,
that set the tone. Malkin comes out, first shift, fucking turns it over right in front. The guy just goes, boom, boom. I'm like, oh, could be a long night. Could have been 7-0 in the first period.
Yeah, it really could have. But you just mentioned some of those veterans, like Letang was fighting a little bit. Obviously, Karlsson, I don't know what you're going to get back for him. You'd probably have to retain a good chunk of that salary. So, I don't know, boys. Sid's been there for 20 years. It's all he really knows. Do you think he's willing to lift that no trade and be like, hey, doobie fella, get me out of here. Get me to a team if you can, like Colorado. I don't know what it looks like, but I'd be willing to go, say, come March.
Yeah, and I think Uppy makes a good point. Like, I think if Sid did that, he'd be helping the organization, right? Like, it's all you want to play in one place. Like, it doesn't matter if Sidney Crosby leaves or doesn't leave. He's always going to be a legend in Pittsburgh. Like, I don't know how much it means to him to only play for one team. And I think if they were a little bit more competitive, but like, it's going to get worse before it gets better there. And he is literally, in my opinion, the only real asset that they have there to move. So he could help them speed up the rebuild by moving on, getting some assets, and then it's full. You buy out fucking the rest of them, and it's just game over.
We'll just continue it. But the Getzlaf question I asked him about like, would you change the way that things like worked out? Yes, you finished a Duck, but you finished and management changed and opportunity here changed for you. And next thing you know, it's just not the same organization it was for your first 15 years. And you're like, what the fuck, right? And then you look at Patty Kane, who is still idolized in Chicago because he did just do that. He got to a point where he allowed himself to be moved. He knew things weren't perfect, and he's still a legend, and as he should be. And Sidney Crosby, no matter what happens, he could quit tomorrow if he wanted to. He's still going to be a legend. Or he really sits back, evaluates, and he brings the city some youth, and he goes and chases a cup for his last 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he wins a cup and still plays 6 years. Who knows? He still can't. But he's a very effective guy at under $9 million.
Let's say Crosby. Let's say they trade Crosby and my boy Landy gets back. You could go Letkinen, McKinnon, Rantanen, Big Val if you could keep it together. Crosby, Landeskog, or put Landeskog up with McKinnon. Like look at those two top lines.
Yeah.
Like hello, how are you? It is like we could win. The next one or two in the next 2 or 3, 4 years. And it makes sense to me because him and Nate are boys. They're from the same town in Nova Scotia. Nate's already won one, so he proved that he can do it by, without Sid. But why not, team up here and squeeze every little bit of Sidney Crosby I have left? But I just think, Swish, that's the team that makes sense to me. I'd have to look around the other league. Maybe a team like, I don't know, Tampa would work for him too. Go down there and play with Coop in the Sunshine State. But to me, it's Colorado that jumps out to me.
Yeah, I think that's the clear-cut favorite. But hear me out on this one, boys. What do you think about Brad Treliving? Would he, hypothetically speaking here, and he goes and knocks on Mitch Marner's door and says, hey, you know what, would you lift your no trade to go to Pittsburgh to reunite with Kyle Dubas, who will probably overpay you when you go there? You could re-ink when the time comes. How about Crosby to Toronto, play with those guys playing as your 1-2 center? I mean, is that a move if you're Tree that you would be willing to make, Marner for Crosby? I mean, any day of the week, right? And twice on Sunday, even though Crosby is 37 years old. What do you think about that one?
Fucking Mitch Marner's proved me wrong right now, boys. He is just stuffing it up my fucking you-know-what. I mean, I watched him play the other night against the hockey club. Him and Tavares were the best players on the ice, hands down. Like, not even close. So, I don't think Sid would go play in Toronto just because I don't think he wants to deal with the pressure of them not winning the Stanley Cup since, 64 or 69. I should know that, whatever it was. So, I don't think that makes sense. I just don't think he wants to deal with the pressure and the hotbed of, look at what's going on. Actually, I'm going to save Brady. I'm not going to rush Brady, but I don't think Updog,
No,
I don't think Toronto would be a good fit for him.
And then you'd have to hand him so much more than just a Mitch Marner that's going to, you're going to have to pay this guy 8 years for again, 10, 11 million bucks. I don't know. I would like to see it, I think. And if he could go there and win, it's legendary status. Obviously, whoever wins in Toronto is going to be a legend forever. But Sid, being number one, I think he, like Obi, like you said, he needs to go somewhere where those guys have already won. They've already felt comfortable without him, and he just adds to the mix of fire and adds to the well, let's just go do this 3 more years in a row. McKinnon, it's a great.
When you think Western Conference too, right? Like if you put him in Toronto, he's got to go to Pitt twice a year. You're in the Eastern Conference. Like you put him out west, comes to Pitt once a year. It's not like he's always still in the same conference as a team that he obviously is the franchise of. But it's a shame that they're wasted Sidney Crosby's talent. But I will say this about the people of Pittsburgh too. Like I already knew I was getting soft living in Newport Beach, but going back to Pitt made me realize I'm soft, man. But these people in Pittsburgh are, as Swish would say, nail guns, man. Like tough, blue collar, grab a blue light. Like even that the one girl who's an unbelievable person, like she was a tough Pittsburgh gal, right? Like when she was talking, you're like, fuck this girl, like she's nail gun Jay Swish, as you would say. Like they're tough people, man. I was impressed, and I forgot. I guess I'm a pussy now, is what I'm saying.
Well, when we did leave the rink, there was a couple comments like, "Oh, Obes is getting soft," because we all walked outside, a little bit of rain, a little chilly.
Yeah, that's the one. I don't get my hair wet.
Yeah, totally. And I'm like, fuck.
And the quaff, there's not quite wet.
I know 9 out of 10 people wouldn't leave this rink and just do what half these people are doing, just walking out in the street with the rain and like everyone's, you're sitting inside waiting for an Uber. Like,
no, we went to the Marriott. Back with the Labatt Blue guys, had a couple shots of JMO, another Labatt Blue there. So we went to the Marriott, waited for the Uber there, let the dust settle, called the Uber.
Well, yeah, but to my point, it's yours. Is like these guys they leave the game, they just got shit kicked.
Yeah.
And as a fan, you'd think you'd just be soft, but no.
No.
put their face right in it, and they wait for the next game.
Yeah, they're nails. Yeah, nails.